Okay, ready? All right, it's 6 o'clock, so I would like to open the public hearing for the zoning committee for the town of Blackstone, Board of Zoning Appeals, and I would like to ask Philip if he would actually give us a brief description of what we're looking at tonight for the variance request.
I think first and foremost, I think to familiarize ourselves and anybody else who may be in the audience or watching, if they do want to look at the drawing and the scheme, the schematic of what is being proposed. If we look at this, we orient ourselves with the north arrow, if you're familiar with Berg Road. Okay. Is it Frank Wilson? Whose home was hit by a tree,
Yeah.
you guys remember that? And then there's another house, a white wood frame structure that's right next to it. It encompasses, the project would encompass both of those parcels. Okay? If you see this outlined area, those are the proposed 6, like what our standards are, they're not apartments, those are townhouses, okay? Apartments typically will be one above the other and in higher densities, okay? We consider these to be townhouses, okay?
Upstairs and a downstairs.
Pardon?
It's a
Well,
two-story.
I got the drawing right here. I'm not altogether sure it's 2 stories.
Okay.
For example, Frankie Williamson built some townhouses on Oak Street years ago. Because they're side by side and not in excess of a certain number, they're considered townhouses and not apartments. You get into apartments really when you have more density and anytime you have one unit above the other, then it falls under multifamily or apartment complex. I think we call it multifamily. The request that is being proposed is to this property line. Okay? This property line is the one in question. Our townhouse development standards, which I think we also enclosed for you, and I'll read very quickly. When I received the site plan, and if we go to 14-3.2 townhouses, which is towards the back, we have a section in zoning with the little star next to it. You see it? Okay. If we go on down to number
Yes.
7, 14-3.2.7, side yard regulations, where a group of townhouses adjoins another zoning district, and that's not the case, they're both zoned the same, or a use. Well, definitively, the townhouses are one use, and the house next door is a single-family use, which is different, okay? And then it says, a side yard of 30 feet in width shall be provided for the end residents within the group, okay? He is proposing a variance from 30 feet to 15 feet because, and his justification that he's provided is if you look here, the town has a sewer line that comes out of Gospel Hill Pump Station, okay, that is across their property, or across the property that he has purchased. I cannot allow him to build over top of the town sewer line, for obvious reasons. So he is limited, and he can't get farther to the property line to give more setback because of the right-of-way or the easement that the town has for the sewer line. So instead of 30 feet, which is the standard for townhouses, then it would be 15 feet. Now, one of the other discussion points that we had, remember there's 2 parcels, or 2 properties. If somebody were to go back and build a single-family home on one of those properties, for example, then the setback would be much less, okay? For townhouses, it's 30 feet. For single-family or 2-family, in a duplex, if somebody's gonna build a duplex there, their setback would be less than 15 feet. I think the frontage and the rules are in the R2 district that the house has to have setbacks equivalent to 15% of the road frontage. Okay? And I believe that particular lot is about 85 feet wide. So 15% of 85 feet is even less than 15 feet.
Yeah.
Okay? So a single family or a 2-family home could be built even closer than what he's proposing, but because our townhouse standards say 30 feet, that's why we're here tonight. Okay? And the request is here, and he can't go farther to the east because our sewer line got involved. Okay? The use, again, is townhouses, which are considered a use by right without conditional use permit, and that's why we're a BZA and not planning commission. Planning commission would handle a rezoning or a request for the use. The use is permissible, the layout is permissible, except for that side setback on that end unit on the townhouse. Okay?
Okay. Any
If you have any
questions?
questions or anybody,
Any questions
have any
of Philip?
clarifications or anything that you need to know.
Anything on any of the microphones? I guess is my stuff doing it? Where's your phone go?
Is it rocking back and forth?
Let's put it in my chair. How about that? Any questions for Philip, from the board or from citizens? Ricky?
Yes, sir.
So the house that's gonna be to the left, that's not, and the road will separate.
No, if you're at Bird Road and you're looking at these two parcels in which I guess you've closed on them, you own them, do you not? Okay. One of them is vacant. It had a house where a tree had
Right,
fallen
tree
on it.
fell, yes.
And then there's a white frame house, and then there's a brick home. The brick home is on separate property.
Okay.
And that's the one that you see in this diagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And so the request is the variance on that side setback. Not because it's a different zoning district, but it says zoning district or use, and that's a separate use.
That's
or
use.
Definitive use, different use.
How about the asphalt driveway that's between the townhouse and Mr. Corley's? How close is that gonna come to Mr. Corley's property?
Well, if you look at this
Yeah,
diagram.
it looks like it's right up
There's
to
a
it.
carport.
Right,
if I'm
he
not
has a
mistaken.
carport.
That's the carport that's shown, and it's mighty close to the current property line between the two
True,
properties.
true.
And I'm not sure where the asphalt driveway is, I must admit.
Well,
I
there's
don't
one
know.
in the rendering here.
If there's one shown here where it says asphalt drive,
It does.
if that's what you're talking about, that literally is at the property line
Now, in the ordinance,
on Mr. Byers' side of the property
yes,
line.
yeah. Because in the side yard regulations, it says half the width of such private drive shall be allowed to be counted as a portion of the required 15 feet. But it doesn't say the entire 15 feet, which is gonna be the case if he has 15 feet between.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Byers can address the access point, but the 15 feet, I'm not sure what section you're in.
Well, are we, isn't he asking for a variance of 15 feet?
From 30
From
to
30
50.
to 15.
Down to 15, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the 15 feet is now gonna be between the,
Mr. Corley's property line and the end residence of the 6 units.
but the asphalt driveway is gonna cover all that, it looks like. Is that right? I mean, this is really hard to tell this. I use my magnifying glass.
Broken up asphalt driveways that I guess serve the old.
Oh, so that's the
house.
existing?
Yeah, that's existing.
That's
This
what's
is
there.
existing?
This is the existing
That's the
condition.
existing
Yeah.
driveway, that has to come out. Because that's
But your
gonna be
building
actually
is still on
grass.
top of it, okay.
Anything you see on here, except for those 6 units, is an existing condition, like
So
the
there'll be
sewer line,
grass
trees.
between the end of the
Oh,
building?
yeah, we've got grass and shrubbery.
Well, I saw that Prince and landscape and, okay, thank you, I was just confused.
Sorry, I was confused.
And parking in front.
There's
Parking.
actually 2-car garages and driveways for each unit. He's got,
That would be great, thank you.
Yeah.
In the front, okay, my son's part
Have you seen this before? You have seen it. I'll leave these up here then.
Yeah, I do. So coming in here and live in this area. can be-
That's what, if you're driving down Bird Road and you look to your right, I guess that's what you would be seeing, is that from the side.
Okay. So you have driveway coming right off the road.
Proposed at 6.
And each unit has 2-car garage.
each unit has its own 2-car garage and driveway.
Which,
They're meeting the
which I was gonna say,
That
which
doesn't
meets the
encroach
off-street.
into- That doesn't encroach into 15 feet.
I got you.
That's all grass, landscape, drainage.
It is a nice rendering.
Anything is probably an improvement to that old house that's sitting next to you, right? Anything is probably an improvement to that old house sitting next to
Well,
you.
yeah, but I'm so used to that old house. I've been there for, for 40
Makes it
years.
really
and the
quiet.
old house, I knew people that died and
Oh.
lived in there and, cut the grass for 100 years over there and everything. I know all about it.
Okay, so our big question here is, given the variance to be able to have the 6th unit there with our sewer line being an issue of going through his property. Mr. Corley, do you have any questions, or
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
But I do want to say,
can you come up to the mic, please?
I don't think you need to like it the way I thought.
It'll just help Jennifer.
When this was all done, I was kind of shocked that the land was, even to somebody else bought it. Because I would certainly would have thought, I lived there for 40 years or so, that the person that sold it would have probably, would have asked me if I wanted to buy it, but it was just sold out, didn't know anything about it. One day, I knew the lot down there where the Wilkinses lived, it was for sale, and you couldn't really put a house on there because of it had a basement at one time, and then I found out that it was sold, and then to find out that it's gonna be 15 feet from my property. That's just like, I don't have enough privacy to even go to the bathroom. 15 feet, or if something else happens, that's mighty, mighty close. And I would like to say, instead of having 6, go 4 or even 5 houses, give me the space in between. That's just what I have to say. And I just think that it's mighty, mighty close. And I realize he's in it for the business, and it's gonna be nice, but if you will look up and down that street, all the houses, probably the 3 houses that were the closest was my house, and then the house that's still standing, and then the house that was torn down. We were the closest ones. Now they're gonna put one even closer. I'm not happy with that. So that's my opinion. I don't want to see it there that close. I don't care what kind of houses, and I think it's nice, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's a lot better than what is going to be there, and it's also going to bring in, I don't know what type of people. I've just had a golf cart stolen over there. A bunch of kids came over and stole my golf cart and went riding down through there. But, it's going to bring a lot more traffic, and besides that, we got a bunch of idiots coming down that road 90 miles an hour from out of town. And the police can't stay over there all the time. But I'm just saying, it's just too close for me to agree with it. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay?
Appreciate your comments. Mr. Byers? Mr. Byers, do you want to present anything to the board and to?
Well, I guess this was news to me. I spoke to him earlier, and I didn't think there was an issue. I can actually change the interior units, leave the 2 end units the way they are, and change the interior units and make them smaller, and go. And actually, I probably can increase it from 6 to 7 units and do narrower units.
I don't know that I saw the size of your units that you're building right now.
They're 25 foot wide, they're 2-story, there's 15, depending on whether you build out an additional bedroom, they're either 1,528 or 1,728 square foot. They'll sell for $205 to $215, and that's without any additional options that they may pick, so they could grow into the 220s.
So these are going to be sold
Oh, yeah,
townhouses, not
no
rented?
rentals.
Okay, no rentals.
These are for sale. We have
Okay.
3 interested buyers. They're downstairs masters. They're for empty nesters, people downsizing, et cetera.
Okay. So if you were to go smaller, the interiors, would that be at the 1,528 square foot
No,
footprint,
they're
or
probably
smaller than
Yeah,
that?
Yeah, we'd probably have some 1,250 to 1,350 square foot units. We probably have 7 units instead of 6. And we
To
do
make it
5
beneficial.
18-foot units in the interior and then the 2 25s on the end. So instead of 6 units, we'd have 7 units, but we could make that work and keep the 30 feet. Prices would be lower on the interior units. So, I mean, we can do it either way. I thought from an end product, and I thought this was the best solution, but if it's gonna make the neighbor uncomfortable, we don't wanna do that. But we can increase it from 6 to 7 units and make the interior units smaller.
Do you have a market for the smaller, do you know?
Probably, but we seem to be, obviously, this is a new concept to
Right.
Blackstone.
Yeah,
We thought originally that we were gonna build them smaller units for first-time home buyers, but our traffic has been empty nesters.
right,
People who, well, we have one who's got a mother who lives with them. They want to put mom downstairs and they're going to live up, have their bedrooms upstairs. So one of the first units will be multi-generational. So that was the concept behind it, but we can probably do 2 multi-generational and 5 first-time home buyer units and sell those at a lower price and make them smaller. We'll just redraw the interior and expand it from 6 to 7 units if that's more pleasurable to the neighbor.
and he can actually, he can go forth with 7 because that would fit
I
into,
don't care, but I just thinking the close.
okay, I just didn't want,
That's what really disturbed me.
Okay.
And part of the driveway, the driveway you're talking about is still on my land. They went ahead and put hardtop on top of, it was my land when the hardtops, there's still, I know about this much, so on, at the bottom when they did it. But I never said anything because, I'm not gonna have them move anything, but they just went ahead and put it in there.
so the 30 feet that we actually require for townhouses would be pleasurable to you even if he increased the number
That
of,
part is just the part of being so close.
right,
Sometimes I get a little loud, and when I was married, and I voiced my opinion, and my wife did too, and I don't want to be embarrassed or embarrass somebody else.
Right.
Or in the same token with them, I mean, that's mighty close.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
would that be a feasible resolution business-wise to not have that variance and to increase your
Well,
number?
yeah, either that or I can build 2 duplexes and put them at 12 foot from the property line. That's a consideration as well, and I don't need a variance for that. That would fit within, so I'll have to make that decision. I may drop it back to 4 units, 2 and 2, and I can build 12 foot from his property line. I mean, that's an option as well. I thought this was a better option. We were actually 15 foot away, but we could actually build 2 duplexes and be 12 foot from his line. So I have to consider all of the above and
Right.
decide what we're gonna do moving forward.
Right,
It could be, we may build 2 duplexes and be 12 foot from his property line,
which is within.
which is within the
The
ordinance,
zone,
and we will be
exactly.
closer
zone.
than the 15 we're
R2.
proposing now. I'm not sure.
And I could also put junk over there. As long as I don't have it, I can even bring my old Model T out and put it right out there and make it look trashy.
Well,
So there you go. You go closer, I can do the same thing.
Well,
and his
I don't
variance
wanna have
request
a fight
too,
in between, but I just telling you, if he wants to go to duplex or whatever and go closer, I can do the same thing.
well, and it is, in his request here, he did say he would put up a fence and landscaping. So I hope that if he built a duplex, he would also do the same.
Whatever the law requires, I mean, whatever it is, it's fine with me. And I'm not hard to get along with. I cut my neighbor's yard, I've cut that yard for free for a year, and my neighbor's yard. I've got all the neighbor's yards, I've been just trying to be as nice as I can. I don't have an enemy over there, the only enemy I ever
Is that
knew
where they asked
was when the
about?
land was sold out.
Since there are
from
deed
underneath me. I didn't know
restrictions.
that they didn't like me, or wouldn't even give me a chance to
Yes.
buy it.
Well, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
well, we wanted a good relationship for everybody over there that only improves the neighborhood for you and for them. So we want it amiable for everybody coming in.
Along with it.
But, Mr. Byers, would you, I mean, it's a crapshoot basically, Mr. Corley, of if we don't grant the variance here for the 15 feet, he has the ability to put the 2 duplexes there. So it's a crapshoot if we don't.
And I can do the same. I can have a mighty messy place. And don't even have to live there, have another house at Lake Gas, and I can trash it, and I'm not gonna trash it up. I'm not a person to do that, I'm just saying that. I'm not hard to get along with.
Well, I don't think you are, but do you want to keep the request for the variance in and have us vote on it, or do you want to take that out and look at your other options?
Well, it's real, I mean, if it's the board's pleasure that we do not grant the variance, then I mean, it's the same result either way.
Right.
If you don't grant it, then I have to consider what are my other options, single family at 12 feet, duplex at 12 feet, or do I change the increase the townhomes from 6 to 7 and make the interior units? That is a decision I can't make here tonight. I'll have to just consider all the options. I guess we need to vote on it, and we'll just move forward on whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Okay, so keep the variance request in then. Anything else that needs to be at the public hearing? Any more questions?
Well, I'm thinking that if he cut back one apartment to.
Well, it's not an apartment, they're townhomes for sale to live in.
Okay,
Yeah.
townhouse, that'll give you, cut it from 6 to 5, and you would have more space on that end over there.
Well, I've already closed on it and got a construction loan based on what I have here, and now I can either do that with what I have, or I can do the interior, increase the amount of units to make up, I mean, because the numbers are the numbers, I gotta pay the bank back no matter what, so if I'm gonna lose the 15 feet, then I might as well, and I gotta reduce my interior units, then I need to go from 6 to 7 to make the numbers work. So it'll end up being 7 units instead of 6. It's just the interior 5 units will be narrower than the 2 end units. Or I may end up, I could actually go, no, I couldn't go 8,
Where did you see that?
8 at 18.
Is that in that
I
packet?
could
It's
I
on
go
his
8?
application.
18 feet is the
He
narrowest.
put yes, he didn't mark yes or no.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Byers, on your application for the variance, you didn't mark whether or not there were any deed restrictions.
Well, there'll be an HOA and restrictions, you know, dealing with exterior maintenance, and, you know, you can't have cars jacked up on blocks and all of those normal things we would put in a development to protect the integrity of not only the new home buyers buying, but the surrounding buyers as well. Again, these people of means that have decent jobs are going to be buying these. They're not rentals. They're not low-income housing. Not against that, but we're targeting people who are downsizing, and at Fast C, et cetera. We could actually do, 8 units at 18 foot wide there. That would be 144 feet, and we have well, no, I'm sorry, it would be 7. And we're gonna be restricted at 7 because we're short. Even that's only gonna give us 6 more feet. So either way, if we don't go with the 6 we got there, we're probably gonna go with 7 units and do some narrower, smaller units. This is probably what we're gonna do.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Any questions of Philip and our guidelines?
Because the townhomes do have to be a minimum of 18 feet,
18 is the minimum.
yeah, from center wall to center wall.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I guess we'll close the public hearing. And we will open it up to our general meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals at 6:28. And I guess, is there any discussion that we need before? The question is variance of 15 feet from property line instead of the 30 feet required in the zoning.
Well, I'm still confused. I said initially, I think I heard he said initially you want to put 6 townhouses, correct?
Correct. So
6. If he cut one townhouse to 5, that'll give him more footage looking from the street to the apartment on the left.
If he were to cut back to 5, it would make it 25, it would be a 40-foot setback, literally, if he cut one off that end. Because a 25-foot wide unit plus the 15 feet that is shown here, then he would have plenty of room if he were to go with 5. But
Right.
I think that Mr. Byers' response was, well, I can still make the setback of 30 feet by condensing and adding units, but make them, instead of 25 feet wide, and our minimum is 18 feet wide, so it can't go any smaller than 18 feet wide. So I think the intention would be, instead of going down to 5 units, he would increase to 7 units and make them
7, yeah.
narrower.
small. I guess we don't need to dictate to him how he would arrange it if we just deny this. It would be
Yeah.
up to him to reconfigure it.
That is not our decision. Mhm.
I spoke with one, well, it wasn't the property owner, it was a parent of the property owner. I guess they thought it was gonna be low-income rentals, so they were confused. So I can't take anything they told me into account.
Do you have any thoughts you'd like to add, Manager Milbeck?
Without offending anybody, I don't know. I mean, I understand Mr. Corley's position. I understand that our sewer line is the culprit.
Right,
Our sewer line is the reason we're here tonight.
right.
It's not Mr.
You
Corley.
can't dig that up?
And somebody asked me earlier in my office, well, what would it cost to relocate the sewer line? And I don't know, I don't know the cost of that, but,
It wouldn't be
I would
cheap.
assume it would be costly. There's a force main that comes out of there, so, it could be appreciable expense. We're the cause of this. Now, we didn't intend to be, we didn't expect to be. This Gospel Hill pump station was probably there when you built your house, I guess, and
Yeah, when I saw the flag, I couldn't understand what that flag was, and then I realized it was how close it could come to my land. And that,
was there a flag at
The
15 feet?
flag is the property line, that's not the side of the townhome.
Oh.
That's the property line.
I don't own all the way over that way. If that's the case, you can't even build close to me. That's not, the property line runs right even with close to where the hard top is, and goes straight on back. I got my trees on that, yeah.
We haven't flagged the new buildings yet, the only thing we flagged was the property line.
Yes,
The driveway's on here, and then your carport
it's right there. Yeah, but there was a flag right there.
to the rear of it.
It was,
There's a flag, back here, and that's the property, and it could be marking.
it's some other marking, it's not the, it's
Okay,
not
but
the
that,
property.
we have not laid out the buildings yet from the property line, we have not laid the building out. So, our buildings don't even touch
I don't-
the asphalt, I mean, they touch the asphalt driveway all the way to the back, but
Might not be one of those ones. But
Did
because
you
I was
touch it all the way to that?
this asphalt, old asphalt,
Yeah.
not knowing what
But
it cost it.
we don't,
Well, that was all there
we
first.
have
Yeah.
not
I mean,
staked
it's been
these
there, we
buildings
knew that when you
yet.
bought
So
it.
that, that's the flag,
There's a flag
It's not
right,
like it's
right
nothing
over
new
here.
either.
But if we don't do the
Right
variance,
there.
he
But
still
I don't know what that was
can
put there
have
for.
units.
I don't know, it could be, a benchmark for something, I don't know. But we've not, that yellow flag has nothing
Units
to
are
do with the
units,
buildings.
but you go put in.
Nobody's going.
It's
Exactly,
it's
you're
those
not worried
little,
about
in
those
it, you
extra.
know, those little flags they put in the
You're
ground.
more worried about the
I don't
openings
know
and,
what
you know,
it
what
is.
you wanna have in there.
The gas line marker.
But that is not where the buildings are gonna be. It has nothing to do with the buildings. I haven't laid the buildings out because the house has to be demolished before we do that.
So where the flag is, you're still going back this way?
If that is the property line, it's still gonna be 15 more feet that, in the opposite direction.
That
That's
makes it-
still not, it's, what I'm talking about is not the property line, because I put the trees and everything pretty close on the property line. And my trees would be over top of part of his land. I don't know if there's any And they're nasty trees. I love the trees. They're chestnut trees, but they also
Messy.
drop burrs that are unbelievable.
Let me see if we can find a third way, okay? Are there any kind of, if the project were to be approved like this, are there any kind of accommodations that would be suitable to you, like additional fencing, landscaping, any of those kinds of things to keep people from crossing the lines?
I don't care about that. I mean, I just thinking it was just so close. I'm not gonna say that I haven't used that land. When people come to my house, they go right up on the driveway and they park half on mine and half on the driveway. But it just looked mighty close to me. That's why I was so disturbed. There's a few things in life, like I say, it's just so close. I'm so used to having more space, and then to be crowded, that's the part that upsets me. And this is gonna be a lot better looking than what's over there now.
Oh, yeah.
What's over there now
Yeah.
it's a disgrace.
Right.
So
That's
where,
all I'm saying.
so where the old house is now,
It's shown right here.
is
The
that,
old house is,
how many feet from it?
I would say 35 feet and a half from your property line,
Yeah.
approximately. I'm just looking at it. You can see it's a little dash area where it says two-story
for me.
frame dwelling. That's the existing house that's there now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you took that 15 and then each unit is 25, and that encroaches a little bit into that building, so let's just say it would be approximately 35 feet. The existing
Right.
structure is 35 feet from the property line. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's hard for me to read
And
it
I
that
am
way.
not gonna put trash.
I
I
know,
We know.
I know.
I'm just saying that as being, to get back, I'm not gonna put trash.
I know you're
To make a
Trash,
point.
I'm not like that.
I just wonder if we actually, if that's not where the building is going to go, that flag, is it further away from the property line than it actually appears to you right now?
Well, that probably, I still up to look, to me, it was awful close, even the flag, because if you start right there, I'm just looking at buildings, you know, coming out.
Yeah, I don't know what that flag is, I don't know, I don't know if this utility put it there, I don't know if the surveyor, I don't know.
The surveyor-
It's an orange flag, and
But
it
I
has
don't
an
know what it's
orange.
for, because the only thing we've done out there right now is mark the control, the corners of the property, that's it for a boundary survey. We've done nothing to lay out the buildings, the driveways, we weren't gonna do it until we got through this hearing to make sure we don't do this twice.
Right.
So, I don't know what that flag, it could be marking of a utility, I don't know what it is.
Well, you can put two flags out in the field.
And it could be it may very well, it could be a topography control point, because we have to do topography on the land to design drainage. And that may be a point where they measure because that's the high side and it drains down to where to the right-hand side of the property. So it may very well be a topography point is what that is. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the building. It's a drainage flag, is probably what it is. Because your topography points will be indiscriminate throughout the property where there's change in contour.
Let me ask, how wide is this room? Do y'all know? I have a hard time with 15.
Pardon?
How wide is this room? Is that 15 feet or more or less?
Looks like about 20.
Those are 2-foot tiles, 1, 2,
There you go.
3,
Count the
4,
tiles.
6, 7, 8, 9. It's 18 foot wide is what this room is.
Okay, so it would be closer than the walls here.
Like-
Thank you.
Like right here,
Visually helps.
like where you're sitting.
Well, if that is his property line, we're gonna be right about right here.
That's where the building's gonna be.
Now, if we built single family or duplex, we would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We would be right here.
Right. On his
It's
property
two-story.
line.
Yeah.
How
We'd be a
far-
lot closer with a single family or a duplex, we'd be a whole lot closer. to the
Right.
property. And, I mean, there'd be no variance, no issues, we just
No.
go right by use.
Exactly.
So I think we're actually now, we're still gonna be 3 feet farther than we could be anyway. If that sewer line wasn't there, we'd be glad to move it farther, but we can't seem to do that.
I don't have any words of wisdom. You got a neighbor that's disagreeable. I will say I've been a county administrator or a town manager for 25 years, and a sewer line encroaching on their property is probably as valid a variance request as
Sure.
there is. So we get a lot of other ones that are kind of like, well, it's my preference or I'd like to. I do think that he can cut them off. He can go down to 5 unit. He can modify. But our sewer line is the reason we're here. And if we read the definition of variance, it's a hardship not commonly shared by every other property, and not every other property has this hardship.
Yeah,
And There's
agreed.
a definition of variance in your book, and it's supposed to be not just only an economic issue, but it's supposed to be a hardship not commonly shared. I have a really unusually steep lot. I have a creek that perhaps runs through. Jason Walker, if you guys remember,
I
had
do.
another apartment unit that he wanted to put over there at Pinewood. I don't know what it's called now, but Pinewood when I lived there. And there was a creek in the way. Those are the kinds of things that are to provide the most justification for a variance. And I think sewer line falls something like that. But I think you've got a neighbor that doesn't want it.
Well, and maybe to err, which I may be erring from an opinion from me, I want Mr. Byers to make money. I want you to build nice townhouses over there to improve the neighborhood, but I want you to make a profit because that's why we're in business. I want Mr. Corley to be happy with his neighbors and it be amiable for everybody. My feeling, the town sewer is the issue, but if you could actually read, excuse me, the same economic value from building 7 with 2 smaller, and Mr. Corley could walk away happier that they're not 15 feet from him. To me, that's almost a win-win, but I know it's a financial investment that you've made to bring business to, excuse me, to Blackstone, which is important also. That's just my 2 cents. So,
I would mirror that opinion. I do feel when Mr. Byers purchased the property, he saw what was there, he knew what was there, he knew what, he could read the town code, and I feel in a similar way.
Do you want me to leave?
no, I want you to enjoy your new neighbors, and I want Mr. Byers to make some money and
I'm not gonna say I'm not hard to get along.
be able to rent them. I mean, be able to sell them, not rent them. So I don't want to give a business a hardship after they've invested in the town. That's unfair, especially because it's our sewer line going through. But then again, it's unfair if I felt like I was burdening you in your home. So that's just kind of the way I feel about it.
Do we need a motion?
We do need a motion.
I make a motion to deny Mr. Byers' request for a variance.
I second that at this time. Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on it? Okay. All those in favor of denying the variance request, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Of course. And I hope we can have a resolution that works for everyone. But I think that's,
Whatever the law is, the law goes.
we cannot mandate anything from there as far as the variance of anything else they want to build that could allow them to prosper. And so I just feel like that's the best resolution, but maybe I'm wrong.
Citizen planning is always tough, you know?
Yeah, it is.
You know, everybody's known Mr. Corley for years, and obviously everybody wants to, you know, hear what he has to say and try to accommodate. We have growth demands in town, but we try to find them It's never easy. It's never easy for you guys to sit up there. I know you gotta make that decision. So.
It isn't.
Well, I hope Mr.
And-
Byers can come up with a viable plan within the
Thank you.
variance.
All right, anything else to come before Board of Zoning Appeals?
Nope.
All right,
We will adjourn.
meeting adjourned.
Almost forgot my can, I forgot to use it.